Here, British diplomat James Wharton, who came here with a visit to Ukraine. He's the youngest MP from the Conservative Party. He's 36.
This is his trip to Ukraine. We are very happy to have you here, James. So without much further ado, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to speak at the media centre. I've been here in Ukraine only for 2 nights, 3 days, on a very short visit to see for myself some of the challenges that you face and to get an understanding of what people here really see and think about the things that are happening, particularly in the east of the country, and with the aggression that Ukraine is facing from Russian forces into Ukrainian territory. It is, as you would expect, an important issue in the United Kingdom. I expect Parliament, when it returns in the UK on Monday from our summer recess, to debate this and a statement on it. And it is crucially important that British MPs understand the need for the case to be made for further action by the West in order to put pressure on Russia to send a very clear message that much of what they're doing is unacceptable, is illegal, and will not be tolerated. I know there are a range of issues that are coming up in the near future. There is the NATO summit soon in Wales, and I know there's a particular interest here in what the outcome of that is going to be and the statements that are going to be made there. I know that Ukraine's ongoing relationship with the European Union and its moves towards further integration with the European Union and the association agreement with the European Union are important political topics which are relevant to us in the UK, just as they are acutely relevant to people here in Ukraine. But the single overriding the important issue has to be the ongoing conflict and the anti-terror operation of the Ukraine government in the east of the country. This is worrying for those of us in the United Kingdom and in Western Europe. We are watching, I think, with some surprise and disappointment that the actions of Russia, which appear to hark back to a previous age, a time which we hoped that Europe had left behind. I will be taking a very clear message back to the UK Parliament that I believe we need to stand shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine to show that what Russia is doing is not acceptable in Europe in this day and age and the times in which we now live, and that a firmer stance must be taken, particularly when looking at the issues of sanctions and what support it might be possible to deliver to Ukraine if we are to send a very clear message that this sort of bullying behavior that we are seeing from President Putin and from the Russian Federation is to stop. We need to show real solidarity with the people of Ukraine. I think there is a will in the people of the United Kingdom to do that. We need that from right across the European Union and the Western world. I will be taking that message very strongly back to the British Parliament when it resumes and sits again next week. I only hope that enough can be done to avert a humanitarian crisis which is unfolding before our very eyes.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Будь ласка, піднімайте руки, якщо є
I know that you will be report next week when the Parliament reconvenes. Will there be a special session? I understand that where you plan to speak on what you have learned here while being on this trip. Is that correct?
I think it's extremely likely there will be what we call an urgent statement on Monday. I don't know yet. They will announce that when we get nearer to the time, and I would anticipate the Prime Minister or the Foreign Secretary coming to Parliament. Given what is happening currently in eastern Ukraine, I would expect there to be calls for that and anticipate it taking place, and then all MPs will get an opportunity to question British government policy directly, to challenge where we feel it's appropriate, and to make clear our views as individual MPs about what direction British policy should take going forward. And one of the things I've very clearly taken from my visit is not just the warmth and positive feeling towards the UK that so many people here in Ukraine demonstrated to me during the few days that I've been here, but also the desire for further assistance and for a stronger stance to be taken by Western governments. That message has been sent loud and clear. I have heard it, and I will do my best to pass it on to decision makers back home.
Thank you. What about, you mentioned the NATO summit next week, and I wonder what is the position of the Conservative Party with respect to the new role for NATO and the NATO's reinvention of NATO in a way. Do you have, what's your view as an MP individual and maybe of your party on the whole overhaul of NATO? Because currently what has happened, we have the new borders have been, the borders have been changed after the Second World War, basically, for the first time, and the whole European system of security was undermined. And what do you think could be the role of NATO in that respect?
Well, I'd speak as an individual MP rather than on behalf of my party, because NATO is not an area in which you would expect a party political policy as opposed to a government policy. And I'd expect the UK government, whatever party is in power, to take a similar approach. It strikes me as quite clear that the reasons that NATO was created for are no longer as they were then. The facts on the ground have changed significantly. We went through a period in which the purpose of NATO itself seemed to be less clearly defined. We are now entering a new stage where the need for NATO to take a proactive role and to continue to provide a security umbrella for its member nations and for those who share the values of its member nations across the world is perhaps more obvious than it has been for over a decade now. That is a positive opportunity for NATO to move forward and to adapt to the changing world, but there are very significant challenges because the historic background of NATO was to have a clear opponent and a clear strategy and a clear purpose. The world is a much more complex place. We face different kinds of threats in different parts of the world with interlinking alliances depending on the circumstances that exist in the regions and countries that are affected. NATO will need to continue to change and adapt to that. And I think perhaps the monolithic single structure that once worked so well will need to be more flexible and need to allow for different types of association with it as an organisation if it is to continue to provide effective security and reassurance for the years to come.
And the last question is about the sanctions against Russia. Some politicians in Europe say that we have already used all the possible means in terms of the economic and financial sanctions on Russia. What's your view on that? Because I believe there is still a lot can be done, especially in London, in the UK, because many of those oligarchs who became oligarchs in Russia because of Putin and who are supporting him still have their companies registered in the UK, they have their families living there, they enjoy their lifestyle of Britain at the same time being extremely critical about everything Western. So do you think there can be the further rounds of the sanctions on behalf of the EU and and UK in particular?
I think there can and must be further rounds of sanctions. One of the challenges with sanctions is they have to get the full support of a number of countries in order to be effective. You can't introduce a sanction in one country without the expectation that people will just move their assets elsewhere, they'll transfer their activities to another, which presents new challenges in the much more globalized economy in which we now live. But I think there is quite significant scope for further sanctions. I think they are needed, not least to send a very clear message that what is happening and what is being escalated by Russia is not acceptable and cannot be let to lie. It cannot be left without comment, and comment itself is not sufficient. We need to see action. That will cost. That will cost Western economies, and it will certainly cost the Russian economy. But I believe that that is a price worth paying for freedom. The people I have spoken to in my few days here in Kiev have made clear to me that they want that support as a minimum and feel that that support should be delivered to them. I agree with them, and I will be taking that message back to the UK Parliament.
Great. Thank you, James.
Thank you.
We wish you luck and have a safe trip back home.
Thank you.